Hello, all you wonderful people. I have a massive video in store for you today because I have a lot of things to cover. I do have the topic at hand because I like to analyze overused tropes in wrestling and talk about the repetitive nature of professional wrestling and how much that drives me crazy. I've decided to talk about the top 5 most overused moves in modern day pro wrestling. So I thought that'd be a fun topic to discuss and bring up and analyze in a video, and maybe y'all have your own feelings on that and could list your own answers once I get into that. But I also wanted to talk about the top 10 best matches from the month of June. It being a new month and everything, it's time to go back and look at some of my favorite matches from the previous month. But before I get into all of that, I've got a lot of shows to review, namely this week's weekly wrestling events from Raw to NXT to Lucha Underground and TNA and Ring of Honor and all of that. Also previewing the 2 big shows this weekend, which will be WWE's Beast in the East special from Tokyo, which is happening at 5:30 in the morning, tomorrow morning. So it's going to be a blast getting up early and watching it. And yes, I am actually going to wake up early and watch it on nothing screams July 4th, Independence Day, America, like getting up at 5:30 in the morning to watch a show that's emanating from Tokyo. So, but it should be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the event. It'll be interesting to see how WWE presents it and what they do. But I also wanted to talk about New Japan's big show this weekend, Dominion, which wanted to provide a quick preview for that and encourage everyone to check out that show as well. So with all of that lined up, let's get started, and let's start off by talking about what happened on Raw this week, which was not very much. Unfortunately, Raw, and especially, and I hate to do this, but when I look at shows like Lucha Underground and NXT and even Ring of Honor, and even to a point TNA, which is a 2-hour show, when I look at those shows, I feel like I'm at least getting a different experience every week. With Raw, it feels like I'm watching the same show every week, unless Brock Lesnar is there. The only time the show seems to have any kind of a spark is when Brock Lesnar's there. And I am in no way advocating that Brock needs to be on the show every week, because that would kill it and completely render my feelings on the matter completely moot, because part of what makes Brock feel so special is that he's not there all the time, and whenever he does show up, it's instantly exciting. Unfortunately, when he's not there, the show is just this stagnant, paint-by-numbers, boring, just really dull show. And even Kevin Owens, who was he's been the best part of the show for the last, month or so. Even he's getting boring, where it's like, oh, I'm going to come down and act like I'm going to fight John Cena, but then I don't. And I'll back out of the fight. I swear he's done that at least 3 times. Your main event is probably going to be Seth Rollins and Kane versus Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns. It was this week. I swear it must be at least the 5th or 6th time they've done that. I don't think I'm exaggerating. I really do think they've done the match that many times. It's just stale. And then you look at some of the angles they're doing, like with Dolph Ziggler and Lana. I mean, it didn't take them long to ruin Lana. They've completely just any intrigue that character had is gone now because this angle is so bad. It's just, Raw's just not very good, and it's a chore to watch. It's dull to watch, and I'm at a point right now where it's like, why do I watch this every week? Like, do I really need to subject myself to these same 3 hours every single week? The only thing that came out of the show that anybody seems to be talking about in a positive way is the John Cena Cesaro match, which was very good. It wasn't as good as some of their previous matches. I remember the match they had on Raw. How long ago was that? I don't remember. I think it was before WrestleMania last year. That sounds right. Yeah, because then he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. But I remember that match. I remember liking that match more. But this one, it was just a really good action-packed contest. The problem with John Cena's matches now, though, is he's pretty much stop doing the 5 moves of doom, or at least he's trying to phase it out, which is a very good thing. That is like, yes, please phase that out, because I made the comment earlier this year after the Royal Rumble that even Cena looks bored doing the 5 moves of doom now, so any excuse to phase that out is, by all means, go ahead and do it. The problem, though, is that he's working in all these new moves like the springboard stunner and the tornado DDT and the trap leg sunset flip powerbomb that he's doing, which all look great, and it's like, oh wow, it's adding new dimensions to Cena's matches and everything. He shows that he's not just a formula guy, or he's not just a paint by numbers guy. He's actually willing to expand his horizons a little bit. The only problem with them is that he never beats anybody with those moves. So it's just going to be a series of kickouts, and eventually that's going to wear thin, and to where those moves don't really mean anything. And I've been an advocate, and I don't want to sound like I'm picking on Cena, because, like I said, it's a problem that's sweeping across the board in modern day wrestling, especially in the WWE. But letting Cena win with that springboard stunner, or the tornado DDT, or whatever. I mean, just doing that every once in a while isn't going to be a bad thing. The springboard stunner, I did see him use it once as a setup for the AA. If they want to use it that way, that would probably be okay, because it would, stun the opponent and set them up for the AA, which would actually be a nice 1-2 punch. I think he did that. I think he did it to Kevin Owens in their last match. So that would be a good way to use it. Not every move has to be used for a 2 count or anything, but yeah, that match was really good. But other than that, Raw is just a drag to watch, and it's a shame that I don't want it to reflect on Seth Rollins, because ultimately, whenever the show goes bad, it feels like the champion gets blamed for it, especially if the ratings are reflecting that. And I don't think that's fair, because the champion can only do the best with what he's given. And I'm convinced, like I said, if you put Brock Lesnar out there every week under these circumstances, it wouldn't make a difference. It would still be a boring ass show. And Seth is doing the best he can with what he's given. The problem is that they're just not giving him much. And I'll say this again, for all the complaining that fans did about, Lesnar's not on TV, the champion should be on TV more often, and it's bullshit and blah, 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 and they were making jokes about it and everything. Didn't the WWE title matches feel a lot more important because Lesnar wasn't on TV all the time? Didn't it make them feel like you have to go out of your way to see those matches? I mean, the only problem with it is that he did nothing but work with Cena, but other than that, I mean, it made the WWE title matches feel like they should. Make them feel like main events. Make them feel like something that you're willing to crawl across broken glass to go see. And now that Seth's the champion, we're back. All right, the champion's on TV every week. He wrestles every week. He, defends the title once a month on every pay-per-view, and it takes the speciality out of it. And now Seth as champion is not a special attraction. He's not like a guy that, let me put it this way. If Seth Rollins was in the main event of the Beast in the East special, and he was wrestling Kofi Kingston, I wouldn't go out of my way to see that. That's no knock on Kofi, it's no knock on Seth. It's just, look, I see Seth wrestle all the time, so why should I get up at 5:30 in the morning on my day off on a holiday to watch yet another Seth Rollins match? Brock Lesnar, you put him in that situation? Hell yeah, I'll go out of my way to see it. Yeah, I haven't seen him since WrestleMania. Okay, that's pretty cool. And it's all about, you don't want to give us the Holy Grail every week. Otherwise, even something as special as the Holy Grail can become mundane if you experience it every single time, or all the time, or whatever. And but that's basically Raw at this point. Now, I've said this a million times, I don't even bother with SmackDown at this point. But Raw is just kind of a drag. NXT's still pretty good though. Those Finn Balor interviews that they've been doing lately, that 3-part series, which works as a nice little documentary on Finn Balor's entire career, from his time in the early days, and then into New Japan, and then his time in NXT, and how he got there, and all of that, and how he molded himself, and how he appreciates the fans, and all that stuff. Outstanding series of segments, and I felt like you really get a new insight into Finn Balor, the person, or Fergal Devitt, or whatever, and it just provides a whole new perspective that makes these guys feel more human when you do stuff like that. And I loved the series. I thought it was great, and it's really been the highlight of NXT the last few weeks. So it's if you have a chance, go check them out if you haven't already, because they're really, really good. I was not a fan of the main event this week on NXT. I'm not knocking any of the 4 guys, but it was Balor and Joe versus Owens and Rhino, with Balor getting the pin on Owens. And I'm kind of like, I'm not a fan of that. I don't like that style of booking where, let's build up a match by putting them in a tag match the week before the event, and then have the guy that's going to lose the match at the event go over in the tag match to create the idea, oh, maybe he can win, but it's actually creating the opposite effect. Because he won, I expect him to lose at the Beast in the East special. And, again, Raw does that all the time to the point that it gets boring. I mean, I've talked about it before. Seth and Kane versus Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. I'm so sick of that match already. It hurts my head just thinking about it. So I don't want NXT to start doing things like that. Because they don't do those things too often, it was okay this time. I just hope that now that Dusty Rhodes is no longer in the picture, unfortunately, I hope that a lot of the little touches that he probably put into the show don't start going away. And I hope NXT stays NXT. They don't start falling into a lot of the same traps that the main WWE show does, but we shall see. I'm still really excited for Beast in the East, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But moving right along, Ring of Honor on Destination America. What have I thought of the shows lately? I'm disappointed that they haven't followed up on Best in the World yet. They've crowned a new champion. Lethal has both belts. He's the top heel in the show, and they barely even mentioned him since the pay-per-view, and I'm just thinking, man, I'm sure a lot of this has to do with shows and matches already being in the can, and they're just presenting what they already have until they get to the New York tapings. But it's still like, man, it's a little disappointing, because it feels like the last 2 shows since the pay-per-view, last 2 episodes, nothing's advanced and nothing's been established. It's just a bunch of matches, and mostly Ring of Honor versus New Japan matches, which is, they're not bad matches. The action's good and everything. I thought AJ and Cole had a great match this week on the show. Nakamura and Strong had a great match last week. But nothing's advancing storyline-wise. And I hope that once they get into the New York shows, that changes. And they get into a pattern of keeping things moving forward. And that's I'm not expecting great 3 or 4 star matches every week. I want storylines to build into those 3 and 4 star matches, and so that they have the proper context, they mean something, and I really want to see them. And then when I ultimately get them, I'm more satisfied. And I hope that's what Ring of Honor ultimately does. They've said that Lethal's going to be on the show next week, so hopefully this is the start of some kind of advancement for them. We've got Lucha Underground. Got to talk about them. They're still building up towards Ultima Lucha, their big season finale, and it's still going great. I can't wait to see Prince Puma versus Mil Muertes for the Lucha Underground title. That is going to be one hell of a match, I think. And, Muertes is just such a great character and so well presented, and so... he's just so great. And he's just one of those, great, otherworldly wrestling characters like The Undertaker or Kane that's so crazy and insane, but really, really cool to watch, too. And Katrina really adds a lot to him as well. So I think it's going to be a great main event at Ultima Lucha, and I'm really looking forward to it. This week's show where they did the bit where Chavo tried to steal the Lucha Underground title from Puma, I think we all figured that Puma was going to keep the title by the show's end, but for what it was an enjoyable episode all the same, and as long as they don't do anything to disrupt what they already have with Puma and Muertes, I'm pretty much fine with it. And I can't wait until Ultima Lucha because I think it's going to be a great show. I think I think it's going to be a really, really stellar show, and I'm going out of my way to avoid spoilers because the show was taped back in April, but I'm avoiding spoilers like the plague. It's no, I want to come into this with as fresh a perspective as possible, knowing nothing. So hopefully that show delivers, because right now Lucha Underground, week to week, I mean, they're the most enjoyable wrestling product week to week. On a weekly basis, in terms of enjoyment factor of the show, nobody's better than Lucha Underground at the moment. But hopefully that all pays off with a strong season finale. And finally, let's talk about TNA, which had 2 big shows this week. They had Slammiversary, their first pay-per-view in a year. Their first live pay-per-view in a year, I should say. And the Bell to Bell special, which featured Kurt Angle defending the TNA title against Ethan Carter III, and the finals of the Best of 5 series for the TNA Tag Team titles. And starting with Slammiversary, I did watch it. I'm sure I'm one of 3 people that did. I'm sure that... I'm trying to sum it up as best I can. For a show that had nothing going for it, storyline-wise, because I already ranted last week that all the big matches were being done at Bell to Bell, or the week before, and a lot of the matches at Slammiversary just don't have any consequences or build up into them. So it just feels like, why would I, why watch the pay-per-view? I mean, I only did out of morbid curiosity at this point. And for a show that had nothing going for it, they at least tried to put on the best show possible, and it wasn't a disaster. It wasn't a bad show. There were some really good matches on there. Austin Aries versus Davey Richards. Really solid match. Really, really good. Magnus versus James Storm. Pretty solid match. I thought the finish was a little screwy. I'm not a fan of that, the face and the heel they hit each other, and then they both knock each other out, and then the heel falls on top of the face. I didn't like it when Austin and Triple H did it in 01, and I didn't like it here. I was like, that's kind of... It's their way of protecting the baby face, but I'm like, dude, if you want to have the heel go over, just let the heel go over. I mean, why do they always got to pull all these, like, all these, like, really wacky tricks to make the heel's victory seem at least a little bit tainted? And I'm just like, you don't really need to do that. I think it's unnecessary. But, like I said, some solid matches all throughout. The King of the Mountain match was pretty solid. Jeff Jarrett winning a new title, the King of the Mountain Championship, which is, I believe they just used the old Legends title belt, which is hilarious. But... what are the implications of that? Is Jarrett going to be defending that title? I don't know. We didn't get much of a follow-up for that at Bell to Bell. I mean, the Jarrett interview on that show was blink and you missed it. He didn't really say anything. It's indicative of a business relationship between Global Force Wrestling and TNA and a talent exchange. Apparently Bobby Roode's going to be working the tournament to crown the first ever Global Force champion, which, okay, I mean, that's all well and good. And I think a talent exchange could be good for both companies. I don't know if it's too little too late for TNA at this point, but we'll see. There's also rumors that Jarrett's going to buy TNA and rebrand it as Global Force, which is probably the best solution for TNA at this point, because the brand of TNA is just poison at the moment. But, Slammiversary, like I said, not a bad show. It's not a disaster of a show. It's just a fairly pointless one because none of the matches really, except for Storm and Magnus, none of the matches had any kind of like real significant build-up put into them or really mattered. I thought the X title match was pretty good as well, but again, it probably would have been better if you crowned the new X champion and then built that up to the pay-per-view rather than crowning the champion the week before the show and then doing it at the pay-per-view. But, whatever, that's just me. And then we get into the Bell to Bell special, which was one of the better impacts in a while, truth be told. Mainly because of the two big matches. I thought the best of 5 series finale, the 30-minute Iron Man match between the Wolves and the Dirty Heels was very, very good. Very good display. Had about as much tag team psychology as you're going to get in modern day wrestling, which makes me happy. And I like the strategies that were employed by both teams, namely towards the end where Dirty Heels took a late lead and then tried to run out the clock, much like Mundo did in his Iron Man match with Prince Puma a few weeks ago on Lucha Underground. It makes sense to do that. Why wouldn't you do that? It's like taking a knee in football. Of course you're going to drain the clock. And I liked all that stuff. I liked the Wolves, a lot of the action that they provide, and they're a very good team and everything. And I thought it was a very good finale to the series, and I really enjoyed it. So that was all very good. The Wolves won, which wasn't much of a surprise, but it was a nice... if you're looking for good tag team action, I think that was about... That was a really good display of tag team action, really, and a nice payoff to a series that's been going on for the last, month and a half or so. So all very good stuff right there. And then we got the main event, Ethan Carter III versus Kurt Angle. Again, a lot of the tricks that they used to taint the heel's victory felt a little overboard, like the ref bump and then the involvement of Brodus Clay or Tyrus, whatever the fuck his name is. That felt like overkill, but other than that, I thought the match was very good, and Ethan Carter walked out with the TNA title, which I think is the right move. I think EC3 is the best thing TNA has going by far in terms of a character that they've actually built up over a long period of time and generated some intrigue with, and a performer that's really carried the ball and done everything he's been asked to do and just maximized everything that he's been given to the best, to the highest degree. I think Ethan Carter III is the best option to go with as champion. And I thought the match was really good, and it was a nice payoff. And again, I don't know if it's too little too late, but I think the TNA show is a lot more interesting with Ethan Carter as champion than, Eric Young and Kurt Angle at this point. Because, Kurt Angle, yeah, we've been there, done that. Bobby Lashley, he never lived up to his potential. Eric Young, was a comedy character for over a decade, and now we're supposed to care and all that other stuff. Ethan Carter feels fresh and exciting, and I want to see what they can do with him. So, now, here's the sad part of all of this. Like I said, Slammiversary, not a bad show. Bell to Bell, one of the better impacts in a long time, possibly the best since they've been on Destination America. The sad part about all of that is that guys are leaving. Austin Aries is leaving. Magnus and James Storm are leaving. Magnus cut that bizarre promo right before his match at Slammiversary. It was like, well, yeah, it was his last match with the company. So, and again, it seems like they're going to be part of the Global Force Wrestling Talent Exchange, and which, again, that's where the benefit comes in with both companies, where they can cycle guys in and out and keep them fresh and give them a new environment every once in a while, rather than just having the same people on every episode of TV every week and they get stale and boring and overexposed. But, those guys are leaving. There's word that Taryn Terrell and Awesome Kong might be leaving. A couple other guys, I think, too. Kurt Angle's hurt, and he's going to be gone for a while. He may be retired. Apparently he has a tumor in his neck. And if anybody's earned retirement, it's probably Kurt Angle. It's like, guy, dude, you can slow down now. It's fine. I don't expect you to go full speed anymore. You can probably retire and walk away. So, yeah, but by the time it's all said and done and all these guys are gone, it's like, man, what have they got left? It's, I don't know. It's sad. I don't know. It'll be really interesting as we head into September and, talks that Destination America might drop them. I don't know what kind of intrigue they're going to generate if guys are constantly leaving. But yeah, so that's that. I mean, that's what that is. So even though they put on these two solid shows, there's still that sense of dread that that might have been their last hurrah. I don't know. And again, we'll find out more as the weeks and months go on. But like I said, I am happy with the decision to make Ethan Carter III their champion. I think he's the right guy to go with. But unfortunately, like I said, it might be too little too late at this point. Now, before I jump into listing my top 5 most overused moves in modern-day pro wrestling, I do want to provide some quick previews for WWE's Beast in the East special and New Japan's Dominion, both of which are happening this weekend. Both of them will be occurring Saturday and Sunday, very early in the morning for us Americans, so be ready for that. But I encourage guys to check out both shows if they can, because it looks like both are going to be a lot of fun. For WWE's event, we're getting Brock Lesnar versus Kofi Kingston, which doesn't sound like a big match, but like I said, I don't see Lesnar all the time, and seeing him in this setting could be very cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the WWE does to produce and present this event, because I hope it looks like a Japanese show. That's what I'm hoping for, because I think that could be really cool and give it a different flavor that most WWE shows don't usually have. But yeah, we're getting Brock Lesnar versus Kofi Kingston. That should be a lot of fun. Should be cool. Lesnar should go in there and kill a bitch, and I expect Kofi to make him look like $1 million. So there's that. We're getting Adrian Neville versus Chris Jericho, which is an interesting match. I'm not sure what Jericho can deliver at this point. His last couple of runs have kind of left a lot to be desired, especially his last one, but hopefully he can go in there with Neville and they can have a nice, really good match. And Neville's been great ever since he got to the main roster. So here's hoping that they deliver something good. And obviously the big one for me is Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens for the NXT title, with Finn Balor pretty much guaranteed that he's going to be the Demon Finn Balor, which is going to be great. And I talked about it when they had their first match back in February. I felt like there was plenty of room to do a rematch with Finn Balor as the Demon and treating them sort of like as two different personalities. And it looks like they're going to do that, and I think this match is going to kick so much ass. It's going to be great. I'm really excited to see that one. More so than to see Lesnar, I'm excited to see this match, and I think it's going to be outstanding and great. The rest of the card, there's a bunch of random matches. I think there's Cena and Ziggler versus Kane and Barrett, which is pretty random. I think there's a Divas title match on there. There's Cesaro versus Diego, which is about as random as it gets. Again, not that the matches will be bad. It's just that none of them are really instantly grabbing like those top three. Those are the three that made my eyes bug out. Because A, Lesnar, B, NXT title match that has some great build-up put into it. And, Jericho and Neville. I'm like, oh, that's different. Okay, cool. Excuse me. But yeah, that show should be really cool and really exciting. So set your alarm clocks and get up early and watch that WWE Network, because I think we're in for a cool little treat. And I will provide a review of that probably Monday evening at some point. But I will also be providing a review of New Japan's Dominion event, which will be happening Sunday. The card for this is just stellar. I mean, it's just a really great card. The best card that New Japan's put together probably since Wrestle Kingdom 9. You're getting AJ versus Okada for the IWGP title. You're getting Nakamura versus Goto for the Intercontinental title. You're getting Ishii and Makabe for the Never Openweight title to complete their trilogy. You're getting the Bullet Club versus the Kingdom for the IWGP tag titles. You're getting Kushida versus Kenny Omega for the junior heavyweight title. That should be great. You're getting Shibata versus Sakuraba. That should be great. You're getting, most people like these type of matches. I'm kind of wearing thin on them. But you're getting the Young Bucks versus Red Dragon versus Roppongi Vice in a triple threat for the IWGP Junior Tag titles. I feel like I've seen that match 800 times. But, you're going to get your pinfall or your pinball bounce around crazy match. So that should be fun. But, yeah, I think the card looks really, really good. Oh, you're also getting Tanahashi versus Yano in the culmination of their feud. So, yeah, I think the card looks stellar. I'm especially excited for AJ versus Okada and Ishii versus Makabe, which I love their two previous matches, so it stands to reason I'm going to love their third as well. And they announced matches for this card back in May, I want to say. So they've been building this one up for a while. I feel like I've been waiting for this one for quite a bit, so I'm really excited to see it. And, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be one hell of a show, and I'm really excited to see it. So I encourage everybody else to check it out as well, and I should have a review for that also sometime Monday night. If not Monday, then definitely on Tuesday. So be on the lookout for that. Now it is time to dive into the main topic at hand. My picks for the top 5 most overused moves in pro wrestling today. And you know me, I like to talk about whenever something is getting old or stale or repetitive or overexposed in wrestling, I like to highlight that in shows like, guys, maybe you should scale back on that a little bit. And I do have that mindset very much of less is more. And you don't have to constantly do the same things over and 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 over again. There should be free range to kind of change things up and not fall into patterns, or carve your own identity and not live in somebody else's shadow or anything like that. So when I see moves that are used way too frequently by too many guys, I go, maybe you should take that out of your repertoire and change things up a little bit, because you're starting to look like everybody else, or whatever, anything like that. Starting with the list, I'll go right now. Number 5, my pick for the number 5 most overused move in professional wrestling today is the suicide dive. It feels like every high flyer cruiserweight guy has to use some version of the suicide dive. Has to. It's as standard as a clothesline for a lot of guys, or like a body slam for big guys, or something like that. It's just, if you're a cruiserweight, you're a high flyer, you have to use the suicide dive. And so many guys use it that it doesn't feel like it's that special of a move, when it should be like a big deal. Like, I remember when I was a kid seeing Randy Savage do the double axe handle off the top rope to the outside of the ring. That was amazing. It was amazing because Savage was the only one that did it. And nowadays, we're living in this age where everybody, and again, it's the high flyer cruiserweight types, they want to show how athletic they are. They want to show that they can fly better than anybody, so they all do the suicide dive. But unfortunately, rather than making them stand out more, it makes them look like everybody else, and that's a problem. There's some guys that can do the suicide dive and add a little bit of a pop to it, or make it stand out a little bit more, like King Cuerno in Lucha Underground. He's got the best suicide dive in wrestling. Austin Aries varies it up a little bit and does it a little bit differently from everybody else. Even Daniel Bryan, when he was doing, although that's probably what fucked up his neck, he would do it in a way that made him different and special and stand out a little bit. But when I see so many guys doing the suicide dive, and a lot of them don't do it that well, they just kind of look like they're almost like the guy taking the move is almost like catching them by the forearms, and it looks very soft. It doesn't look like you're tearing right through the guy a lot of the time. And I guess, like, to build off of that, I guess if I had to pick a number 6 most overused move in wrestling, it's the over-the-top plancha onto the group of guys outside the ring. And, those tag matches that I'm getting kind of tired of, those junior heavyweight 3-way tags or whatever, or any kind of cruiserweight triple threat or 4-way or battle royal or something like that, you're going to get that spot where everybody piles outside the ring and you have the one guy that dives to the outside and it turns into a fucking dog pile. That spot's getting really, really old and really uncreative and feels really, really forced. And they do it just to kind of get that high-flying spot in there. And as I've gotten older, I've started asking, okay, why did you do that? And, trying to inject more psychology into the match. And I'm like, all right, what purpose does that move serve in terms of the story? And a lot of times they don't. So, in any case, yeah, the suicide dive, it's a cool move, but not when everybody does it. It should be reserved for the guys that can make it look really cool and make it stand out and make it special. Number 4, we're going to get kind of the heavyweight equivalent of that, the spear. I swear to God, it feels like every big guy has to have some version of the spear. And even not big guys, like Edge. And poor Edge, I love the guy, but he never had a really good finisher that stuck. I mean, he started off with the downward spiral, which looked like he was giving himself a rock bottom. That never looked great. He had that elevated DDT, which they took away from him, and turned it into a regular move. I'll make a note of that. I'm coming back to that in a minute. But I thought that was a good finisher. I don't know why they took that away from him and had him start doing the spear, which I don't think he's built for it. I don't think it ever looked that good when he'd hit it, so I don't know why that would be his finisher. I don't get it. But again, it feels like a lot of big guys, they have to have the spear in their moveset. I don't know if that's the influence of Goldberg or what, but when you got guys like Rhino who look like when he gores somebody, he looks like he's tearing right through the guy. Mil Muertes hit a spear on Drago a couple weeks ago that looked amazing. Roman Reigns can hit some spears that looks really good. But again, when everybody does it, it feels less special. And I think it should be reserved for the guys that can make it look really devastating and really good. Goldberg was one of those guys. Rhino, obviously, never take the gore away from him. Mil Muertes keeps doing spears like that. He can keep using it, obviously. But it's one of those moves that I feel like if you're going to do it, you gotta put some kind of spin on it to make it yours. Not a lot of guys do that. They just do it because, I'm a big guy and I have to. And it's one of those standard moves that a lot of big guys seem to have when they don't really need to have it. So, number 4, we got the spear. Number 3, building off what I said with Edge, the DDT and all of its variations. Oh my God. I remember when Jake Roberts used the DDT as a finish, and it was the most amazing finisher in wrestling. And when he hit it, you knew it was over. And that's it. It was end of story. You knew it was over when Jake Roberts hit the DDT, which really paid off at WrestleMania 8 when Undertaker sat up from the DDT. It was like, oh my God, how the fuck did Undertaker withstand that? And that's something that's kind of been washed away by the sands of time, because a young fan will look at that now and go, well, what's the big deal? He just sat up from a DDT. I mean, I see those all the time, and they're always just a 2 count anyway. So, it doesn't have the same impact. I said the same thing about Savage and Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, where I assume young fans would go back and look at that and go, what's so special about that? They're just kicking out of roll-ups. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Back then, any of those roll-ups could have been the finish. So you didn't know when the finish was coming, and that's what made it exciting. Nowadays, it's been bastardized to such a degree that it doesn't matter. But back then, oh my God, holy shit, But in any case, the DDTs, nowadays, there's so many different variations of it, and so many different ways that people have hit the DDT and even sell the DDT. I mean, you look at the way that Neville and Rob Van Dam sell DDTs; it's incredible. Rob Van Dam, the way he takes a DDT is amazing. But for all the talk of all these different DDTs, and Edge had that elevated one, and Ziggler has his kind of jump up hit DDT, and there's tons of guys use the tornado DDT and all this other stuff. They never win with them. And I feel like the DDT is a move you should win with. And if you're going to do like a special variation of it, which is presumably more devastating than the standard DDT, then you should probably get a win with them at least once in a while. And Jake Roberts has talked about this, where he said, you know, whenever you kick out of those amazing, you know, tornado DDTs or whatever, all you're doing is that you're telling everybody in the arena that Jake Roberts is tougher than you are. And he's kind of right. It kind of makes Jake Roberts look like so much better than you that I can beat you with a standard DDT, but everybody else kicks out of like these special, you know, all these crazy variations of the DDTs that have been invented over the years. And again, I feel like if you're drilling a guy's head to the mat and you really want to sell that as this devastating move, then you should probably win with it. And, you know, I talked about it with Cena, I talked about it with Ziggler, I've talked about it with, you know, everybody, the various cruiserweights or whatever that use their various versions of it. I guess you could throw the powerbomb in there as well, because there's a lot of versions of the powerbomb. And back in the day, and I sound like an old fart when I say stuff like this, but back in the day, when Vader or Sid would hit the powerbomb, shit was done. It was over. And now you've got guys getting powerbombed off the top rope and shit, and it's a 2 count. It doesn't end the match. And again, a lot of what I'm saying here builds into my overall feeling that, you know, you can be more creative with the finish of the match than just, oh, I hit a finisher and it's it. You can kind of, there's room to be creative. There's room for variety. There's room to think outside the box a little bit and come up with something different. And poor Luke Harper, he's got that cool looking powerbomb, never beats anybody with it. It's like, so you just kind of shrug your shoulders and go, oh well, the move doesn't mean anything. And there's definitely room for improvement there. But the DDT, because it was such a cool finisher as a kid, and I looked at the DDT as being like the coolest thing ever. And in my opinion, my 2 favorite finishers of all time are the Diamond Cutter and the Jake Roberts DDT. Those are my 2 favorites. Greatest finishers ever. Fortunately, the Diamond Cutter has not been bastardized. That one's stayed pretty consistently as a finish. Some guys use it, like Bubba Ray used it as a basic move, but for the most part, that one's pretty much stayed on as a finisher, which I'm happy to see that. But yeah, those 2 finishers, I look at those. Those are the gold standard of finishers to me. And to see the DDT get bastardized the way it does, to show how bad it had gotten, I remember when the SmackDown games came out on PS1, so this is going way back, like late 90s, early 2000s. The Divas back then were not of the, you know, were not very talented for the most part, and they were there just to look good in bikinis. But you know, when you're building a roster for a video game, you throw everybody out there. And back in those days, they'd throw everybody into the roster for the video games. For the SmackDown games on PlayStation, I remember they gave, I think all the Divas got the DDT as a finisher, and I'm like, wow, that's the throwaway move that you give the Divas. Fuck you. It's like a way to really make it look unimportant, but. Yeah, I want the DDT to matter again because it was so cool. It was such a cool move, and now it doesn't. Because, again, building off what I said, not only does nobody beat anybody with a DDT anymore, everybody does a fucking DDT now, and it's ridiculous. But, you know, again, I've ranted long enough about that. Number 2 most overused move in pro wrestling, the chop. If I were a wrestler in training, and if I were, you know, getting exposure and working in front of audiences on the indies or whatever, I would never be caught dead doing a chop, because it is so closely associated with Ric Flair. And whenever you see a chop now, people just go, woo. And if I were a wrestler, it would drive me nuts, because I'm like, no. I don't want to remind you of somebody else. I don't want to remind you of a legend. I want to carve my own identity, and I want to have my own, and I'm telling my own story. I don't want to remind people of other guys. And that's not to say you can't borrow things and you can't build off of things that the past had already built for you. Certainly, if I were a movie maker, I would look to Hitchcock for inspiration. I would not rip off Hitchcock and do things that he, things that he made famous with his style. I wouldn't rip him off. I would draw inspiration from him, but I wouldn't rip him off. And I think the chop is so closely linked to Ric Flair that doing it just reminds people of Ric Flair. So I just wouldn't want to do it. And again, everybody seems to do the fucking chop. And it's just, you know, I feel like 80% of the matches out there, the crowd, you're going to get woos out of the crowd because everybody does fucking chops. And to me, that's distracting the crowd rather than engaging them. If that makes any sense. And maybe that's just me being a little whiny and, being nitpicky. But again, if I were a wrestler, I would never do a chop. I've heard Bret Hart talk about chops and how he doesn't like them because they actually do hurt. And the art of pro wrestling is to make it look like you're hurting somebody, but you're really not. And chops actually do hurt, so in Bret's mind, it goes against the psychology of what wrestling is supposed to be. And I'm like, all right, I can see that argument. But for me, I just wouldn't do them because they're just overplayed at this point, and everybody has to do them. And again, it's coming from kids, younger guys that grew up idolizing Ric Flair. And trust me, I'm going to get into that when I talk about number one. But they idolize Ric Flair. He was a favorite to many, many, many guys, and many of the guys that are in the business now looked up to Ric Flair. So that's them paying tribute to him, and I understand that. But when everybody does it, it gets a little irritating to me. And yeah, like I said, because it's so closely linked to Flair, it's like you're just reminding people of Flair rather than standing out on your own. I mean, try to imagine Roman Reigns. He's got the Superman punch, which is great. I mean, it's his own little unique striking move. And, in today's modern day wrestling, who else has like their own unique moves and everything? So it's like, all right, good on Roman Reigns. He created that. Try to imagine 15, 20 years from now, everybody doing the Superman punch. Try and imagine that. It'll drive you nuts. Like, if everybody starts doing it. It's like, no, if other people start doing the Superman punch, it wouldn't be special. It's cool because Roman does it, and it's his thing. Of course, if you hate Roman Reigns, you hate the Superman punch. But whatever. But it stands out because Roman's the only one that does it. And Roman, for all the knocking he gets, he's created a move for himself that's uniquely his. And it's his own version of a strike that... it's amazing that he's been able to do that for himself, and good on him for doing that. And I'll throw praise at him for doing that, and that's all well and good. But yeah, so basically my point is stop doing chops. It's annoying. Anyway, and now the number one most overused move in pro wrestling, the goddamn super kick. Oh my god, everybody does a fucking super kick, and I know it is because they grew up idolizing Shawn Michaels, and Shawn Michaels is their boy, and they love Shawn Michaels, and that's their way of paying tribute to him, and I understand that, but my god, everybody does a damn super kick now, and nobody beats anybody with it. That's the other thing. Nobody ever wins with a damn super kick. I'll throw guys I like under the bus. Dolph Ziggler, Tyler Breeze, I love those guys, but fuck, man, I've never seen Tyler Breeze beat anybody with the supermodel kick. I think I've seen Ziggler win with his super kick, which, okay, good, but it's very rare, and he's got a ton of other moves that he never beats anybody with, but, so many people use the super kick. It's fucking nuts. The Young Bucks, who I pick on so much for a myriad of reasons, I'm going to pick on them for this, because not only do they do the super kick, they will do it 47 times in one match, rendering the move completely useless. I mean, a Young Bucks match is not complete until you've seen at least 100 super kicks. It's fucking crazy, and it just, the more you do it, the less special it becomes, and it doesn't make it cooler that you're doing it so many times in a row. It just makes the impact of the move less special. And again, I feel like Shawn Michaels made that move cool and made it a finisher and made it really stand out and made it this really awesome thing. Lance Storm had a gorgeous super kick. I would argue, at least in terms of technique and execution, Lance Storm had the best super kick in wrestling. He didn't always beat people with it. See, Shawn's has the most famous because he actually won with it and he made it his finisher and he stood out because of it. But in terms of technique, I think Lance Storm hit the best one. So many guys... They don't do anything new with the super kick, though. They don't put their own little stamp on it, unless you're the Young Bucks and you just do it 100 times in a row. In addition to telling people to suck it 40 times in a row, which is another thing. It's like, so the Young Bucks, they remind me of the Rockers, they remind me of Shawn Michaels, they remind me of the Hardy Boys, and they remind me of DX, and have like no unique identity to their own, and they don't have a lick of tag team psychology. I'm really ripping them to shreds, but I don't mean to, because I feel like the Young Bucks would be amazing if they had an ounce of originality and actually adhered to tag team psychology on a more frequent basis. They'd be fantastic, but they shoot themselves in the foot so frequently, I have to point it out. But, the super kick is really, really overused. And unlike the DDT, it's not used with a lot of variations. It's just used in the middle of a match for no reason and doesn't serve any purpose, and people just do it just to do it. It'll get a 2 count, and that's the end of that, and it doesn't mean anything. My friend Eric Clancy over at thebrainosaur.com wrote an article about it, actually, and talked about how it's just an overused thing to the point that, my God, I mean, who cares about super kicks anymore? I mean, Jesus Christ. How can you at this point? It's just because, everybody fucking does them, and you see them almost every match, and nobody ever wins with it, so the move has been rendered ordinary. And that's the last thing you want to do with wrestling moves, because, you want to go out there, you want to have the most valuable tools to tell your story. You want audiences to be as engaged as possible. Not just the audience in the arena, but the audience on TV as well. You want to have all the tools at your disposal to make that story as engaging as possible. And if you're rendering moves pointless, and if you're overusing them, and if they're being rendered unimportant, then you're really only hindering yourself. And makes it harder to tell stories going forward. So, I just wanted to come in here. I thought it'd be a fun topic to discuss. Did I miss any moves, or any moves that you think are being overused that you think need to be made special again or whatever? Comment down below, and I'd love to hear what you have to say on the subject. But, I thought it was just an interesting thing to talk about, especially since I spend so much time talking about things that are overdone and overly repetitive or whatever. But I hope you all enjoyed that. Like I said, it's a fun topic to talk about. And now let's close out with my monthly tradition of listing my top 10 favorite matches from the previous month. And in this case, it will be for June 2015, in addition to also listing my pick for the best wrestling brand of the month. So, let's get started. At number 10, from Lucha Underground, the June 24th episode, Drago versus Mil Muertes for the title shot at Ultima Lucha. Simply put, this is how you make a monster. I mean, you want to know how to book a monster? Look at this match. I mean, another great example would be Lesnar and Cena from SummerSlam last year. I mean, it's just, you got to let them dominate. That's just how you do it. And, we live in this world today where everybody's got to even out 50-50, but here, of course, Drago got beat up by Hernandez before the match, but, Muertes came in and just annihilated him, and it was great. It was cool to watch. It made Muertes look like a beast. You felt sorry for Drago by the time it was over, and it was just brilliantly executed all around. It just really good. It made Muertes look dangerous, and that was key. And it makes it look like Prince Puma is completely fucked come Ultima Lucha, and that's what I loved. So, for setting up the future and making Muertes look like a complete monster, and even just for the cool visual, because Drago's dressing up a lot like Batman now, and Muertes kind of looks like Bane, so it kind of looks like Batman versus Bane a little bit. So for the visuals, for the booking of making Muertes look like a monster, for setting up something for the future, I thought the match was terrific and I loved it. So, that's my number 10 pick. Number 9 from Ring of Honor, also from June 24th, from that particular episode, or at least it aired on June 24th on Destination America anyway. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Roderick Strong. I normally don't like Roderick Strong matches. He bores me. But it was cool to see Nakamura on American television. It's always cool to see him, period, but to see him on American TV was really cool. And I thought both guys went out there and just had a really good match. It was just a really exciting, very good, great match that Nakamura won. And, it was just satisfying all around. Again, it was on an episode of ROH where not a whole lot of storyline advancement took place. It's not going to lead to anything. It's not going to create anything, I don't think. But just appreciating the action of the match and everything, and just getting the showcase of Nakamura on my TV screen, all of that was very cool and very enjoyable, so I liked it. So that will be my number 9 pick. Number 8, a TNA match. Kurt Angle versus Austin Aries for the TNA World title. This was from Destination X, which was their special that happened earlier this month. Very good match. I mean, it's pretty much what you would expect out of Angle and Aries at this point. Both of them. Angle might be the single most hardworking worker in the history of the business. I mean, that guy will break himself to make a match work. Aries is typically very, very good, and as envisioned, they meshed together really well and had a really good match. Not really a whole lot else to say other than that. Aries lost, Angle retained the title, and ultimately went on to face EC3 at Bell to Bell, but yeah, it's just a standalone main event title match. I thought it was very good and was worthy of being on this list. That's my number 8 pick, so going with that. Number 7, another Austin Aries match. Austin Aries versus Davey Richards from TNA Slammiversary. And again, the pay-per-view match probably should have been the best-of-5 finals just to give us some kind of storyline payoff at the big show. But as is, the winner of this match would get to pick the stipulation for the best-of-5 finals. Which was weird because the best-of-5 finals was taped before Slammiversary, so they were competing to determine a stipulation in a match that's already happened. I don't know. Sounds like Doc Brown's been booking wrestling shows. I don't know, but it's really strange. But as appreciating just a really great match that at least had some kind of storyline purpose behind it, it was very good, and I thought Richards and Aries is... good to see that type of a match. You know, obviously, they're working Ring of Honor. You know what type of workers they are and how hard they work and everything. And they brought some of that to TNA here, at least for a fleeting moment. We got that match. And as it turns out, it looks like it's going to be Aries' last match with TNA. So it was a nice send-off for him, if nothing else. And just a very good match. And for a show that had nothing going for it, at least that match delivered and was pretty good overall. So, yeah, that's my number 7 pick. Number 6, John Cena versus Cesaro from this week's Raw. This one snuck right in at the end of the month. The June 29th episode of Monday Night Raw. This was for the U.S. title as part of John Cena's U.S. title Open Challenge. Bit of a finisher fest, like I said. All of Cena's new moves are starting to look pointless now because he never beats anybody with them. But, you know, appreciating the match. The Cena Open Invitationals have typically been pretty good. Very good in most cases. And this was cut from that same cloth. Just a very good, exciting match. Really enjoyed it. It was the only bright spot on an otherwise dull and boring episode of Monday Night Raw. So, yeah, and Cesaro and Cena, I think they have pretty good chemistry. Or maybe Cesaro is just the most underappreciated, underutilized worker in WWE right now. I wonder if by him flipping off Cena, that was him, like, flipping off WWE management. It was like, yeah, fuck you, I should be in this situation more often. But in any case, it was a very enjoyable match, and I really liked it. It was my number 6 pick. So, moving right along. Now, I have to say, for this particular list, my top 5 was actually pretty easy to pick. I felt like these 5 matches were easily the standouts of the month of June. And if you're putting together a list of your favorite matches for the month of June, I would imagine, and if you watched as much wrestling as I did, I would imagine these 5 matches would be on most people's list. So, with that said, let's go right into it. Number 5, Jay Lethal versus Jay Briscoe in the battle for the belts, the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight title and the Ring of Honor TV title, the main event of Best in the World 2015. It was the main event of the show. It was the main selling point of the show. They did a beautiful job of building up Lethal as the top contender to the belt. Having both titles on the line made it feel even bigger, and I thought they went out there and had a hell of a main event. I thought it was very good, very exciting, and I was really happy that Lethal won. That was really the big capstone of the whole thing, because Lethal's a very talented guy, doesn't always get the appreciation for it, but considering how much they've put into him and how well they've booked him, and, you know, now that they've got the new exposure on Destination America, it's probably best to run with him as champion and give, you know, let a heel have the belt and then run your storylines going forward doing it that way. So, yeah, I was really happy Lethal won the belt. It was all great and wonderful and everything, and it was a killer main event, as it turned out, so I was very happy with it. So, cool beans. Number 4, John Cena versus Kevin Owens for Money in the Bank 2015. I'm sure this will be number 1 on most people's lists. The reason it's not for me is because we just got the match at the previous pay-per-view, and this one felt very similar to that one in many respects, and again, they really should space out their rematches a lot better. But as is, though, I still thought it was a very exciting match. I was, another knock against the match, I was also upset that John Cena won clean as... he beat Kevin Owens clean. I was like, oh, of course that happened. But Kevin Owens recovered after the match with the powerbomb and then, killing Machine Gun Kelly the next night on Raw. So it wasn't like they completely shit on him either. But I wasn't happy with that decision. If they were going to have Cena get his win back, they should have saved it for down the road and make more of a story out of it rather than just like, oh, well, it's the next pay-per-view. Let's do a rematch. And because Cena lost the last one, he's got to win this one. Bibbidi-bobbidi-boo. Whatever. But anyway, forgetting all of that, I thought the match was very good, very exciting. Just a great action-packed match from these two. And I do think that Owens and Cena have a natural chemistry where you kind of want to root for Owens over Cena because, as I've said many times before, the John Cena character is a complete shitbag, but they present him like he's not. Owens is a shitbag, but... he's completely honest about being a shitbag, so that's somehow more respectable. If that makes any sense. I don't know. Honesty is a very admirable trait, I will say. But, I'm looking forward to their next match. Now that they're putting the U.S. title on the line, that should make it stand out a little bit more. But, again, very good match. Wasn't happy with the outcome, but it was still good enough to be the number 4 pick on my list this month. So, moving forward from there... Number 3, Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins for the WWE title in a ladder match, also from Money in the Bank 2015. I talked about it when I gave my review for Money in the Bank. I really liked how that match turned out because it wasn't just the typical that you get nowadays where, oh, let's throw 40 ladders into the ring and dive off of them and bring tables in and all this other stuff and just be as wild and crazy as possible. It was worked like an actual, quite honestly, the way I would expect a ladder match to be worked, in that they took their time in building up to using the ladder and worked a lot of the drama of the match around who gets to the ladder first, and which is really where the drama should be. It shouldn't be how you jump off the ladder. It should be whether or not you get to the ladder and whether or not you get to it first and whether or not you're able to climb it first. That's where the drama should be. And that's where the drama really is. And the spots are just window dressing. It's the action scene of a movie. I'm like, yeah, the action scene can be killer and great, but the story's no good, then I don't give a fuck. And that's how I look at a lot of high spots in ladder matches. Like, no, I want the story to be in place. I want the drama to be in place. And that's why the WrestleMania 10 ladder match will always be the greatest ladder match of all time, in my opinion. But in any case, I am such an old fart. I'm such a crotchety old man. I feel like that Dana Carvey character from Saturday Night Live. You're back in May, eh? And you know what? We liked it. All that other stuff. But anyway, I thought this match was very, very good. It was one of the more enjoyable ladder matches I've seen in a long time because it felt like a fight. And it felt like they were beating the crap out of each other, but without going overboard with diving off of ladders and, going through 14 tables or anything crazy like that. It was very well worked, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. It was probably the match that Ambrose and Rollins should have had last year. When they did their Hell in a Cell match, and they threw Bray Wyatt out there, and they threw all this other nonsense. John Cena got involved in the build-up and all that other shit. But this was indicative of the type of match that these two should be having, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. So kudos, strong main event. And then my number 2 pick is Lucha Underground match. Prince Puma defending the Lucha Underground Championship against Johnny Mundo in the All Night Long match, which is basically just an Iron Man match. And for the entirety of an episode, Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo tore the house down and put on one hell of a show. It was no countouts and no disqualifications too, so that allowed them to kind of break outside a little bit and do a lot of different things with it, like Mundo, like I talked about, Mundo running out the clock. The big table spot they did actually made sense, even though it did take him a long time to set it up. Stuff that Mundo did where he was, got up on the band stage and asked the band to play him a song because, look, I'm 3 falls up, so I don't need to, I don't need to work that hard at this point. And they did so much great stuff, in addition to having great wrestling action as well, as these two have provided, pretty much since the first episode of Lucha Underground. It feels like whenever these two get together, it creates some magic. There was some of the best matches in Lucha Underground. Like I said, the first main event of the first show was them, and it was great. They were the last two in the Aztec Warfare match, and it was great. They were in that ladder match with Big Rick, and that was great as well. So they have a pretty good track record of working well with each other, and this was no exception. Arguably their best work. And it was a good setup for Ultima Lucha, because it was pretty much determined that the winner of this match would go on to main event Ultima Lucha as champion. And it was a great kickoff for that, and great kind of, I know Dario announced Ultima Lucha a few weeks prior to this, but this really felt like kind of the kickoff. It was like, all right, now we're getting into Ultima Lucha season, and it's going to be great. And El Patron got involved, Alberto El Patron, which was great, and a nice payoff to him coming back after Johnny Mundo threw him through the window. And now that sets up their match for Ultima Lucha. I mean, it looks like Ultima Lucha is going to be a pretty killer show between Puma versus Muertes, Alberto versus Mundo, the payoff to the Aztec Medallion storyline, Pentagon versus Vampiro. I don't know what type of shape Vampiro is going to be in, but the build-up's been stellar. So it looks like they've got a lot of great things lined up, and I'm really excited. So, but yeah, this was a killer title match. Great main event. Great episode. Since it took up the entirety of the episode, it was one of the better episodes of Lucha Underground. Of a show that has a pretty high standard of putting out great episodes, this was one of their better episodes. So, I loved it. It was terrific. It was great. It was wonderful and perfectly great match. But my number one pick for match of the month for June 2015 was KUSHIDA versus Kyle O'Reilly in the finals of the Battle of the Super Juniors tournament from New Japan's Battle of the Super Juniors 22. Ever since I started watching New Japan earlier this year with Wrestle Kingdom 9, I've been a regular viewer and I've been watching it more and more. The junior heavyweight division hasn't really stood out all that much. Not that the matches are bad, not that Kenny Omega's matches are bad or anything. He's had some pretty good ones. It's just that his matches and the junior heavyweight matches don't feel as special as, say, the never openweight matches, like Makabe and Ishii, or even Honma and Ishii, and those hard-hitting stiff fests that they have. Those are great. Nakamura in the Intercontinental title level, his matches are main event level. And then the main events, you've got AJ, Tanahashi, and Okada just tearing it down. Ibushi even got involved in that and had a killer match with Styles. So it hasn't really felt like the Super Junior just kind of feels like a thing that's on the show and, perfectly serviceable, but not really doing anything that really stands out. Well, here was their platform to really stand out, and this was the finals of the tournament. KUSHIDA taking on Kyle O'Reilly, and my God, they had an absolutely outstanding match. I put it over heavily when I reviewed the show, but I can't state enough how great this match was. You want a match that has a little bit of everything? This was it. It had high flying, it had hard hitting, stiff, shots. It had mat wrestling, it had counters, it had drama, it had a little bit of every potential style you could possibly enjoy in wrestling. This match had, and it was outstanding, and I loved it, and it really surpassed any and all expectations I had of it. And I love Kyle O'Reilly, and I like KUSHIDA. I like him a lot, but I wasn't expecting the match to be this good. I was expecting it to be really, really good, but at this level, oh my God. I mean, this was one of the best matches I've seen this year. It was incredible. It was absolutely amazing. I can't put this match over enough. It was just stellar. It really made me excited for the junior heavyweight title match at Dominion, because I knew that the winner of this tournament was going to get that title shot, and I'm like, holy shit! I was like, now I can't wait to see the winner of this get his title shot. It's going to be outstanding. So, these two went out there and just had a hell of a match. It was a great end to the tournament. It was a great setup for a title match down the road, and as a display of wrestling action, it was about as flawless as you could possibly get. It was an outstanding match, and I loved it. It was terrific. It was wonderful, and kudos to both men. It was an absolutely outstanding match. So that is it. My top 10 favorite matches for the month of June, and with that, I now have to pick my favorite wrestling brand for the month of June, which was kind of a hard pick this month. WWE... Money in the Bank was a pretty good show, had some really good matches on it, but Raw, kind of a drag. So it's like, can I really say that that's the best brand? NXT, they didn't have a special this month, and they're just kind of, doing their thing, slowly building up the things in the future. The build-up for Owens and Balor has been very good, but they're kind of going at their own pace, and I'm sure when we get to the next TakeOver special, it'll be outstanding like it always is, and that's what I love about NXT. Lucha Underground, week to week, stellar show. I feel like a broken record at this point. It's great. It's wonderful. But in picking a standout brand this month, I think I'm going to go with Ring of Honor. And it's not that they've been putting on the best shows week to week. It's more about, just the headline that they were able to get on Destination America. And now they have this new exposure that they didn't have before. Really kind of took the piss out of TNA, unfortunately, who, quite honestly, as far as the shows they've been shelling out, better than what they have been doing. That's not saying much, but there were, when you look at Slammiversary and Bell to Bell, there were improvements, definitely. But I think Ring of Honor, the fact that they were able to get onto Destination America and get this new exposure, and then deliver Best in the World, which was a pretty good show with a killer main event and establish a new champion and everything. I think Ring of Honor's in a position now to really show what they've got and possibly do things that they've never been able to do before. We'll see once. I hope once the New York tapings kick in and we start getting new material that the storylines start advancing a little bit better, because that's really been the knock on the show lately. The wrestling action's fine, the presentation's fine. They just need to actually have their stories develop a little bit week to week, and the last two shows haven't really done that because they haven't really followed up on Best in the World yet. But like I said, hopefully that changes. But in any case, a new home, new environment, fresh start for Ring of Honor. They've got a chance to do something special. And because they were able to do that and they were able to get on Destination America, I thought, okay, I'll give them Brand of the Month because that was a pretty big headline for them and a pretty big deal. We'll just, if they can build something off of it, even better. That's great. More options for wrestling. I'm fully in favor of that. I love the art form. I love having more options, and having Ring of Honor on that stage, I think, is a good idea. And I think it's really cool, and hopefully, like I said, hopefully they're able to do something with it. But with all of that, this massive video is now done. Hope you all are going to enjoy your July 4th weekend. Hope you all stay safe. Hope you all have big plans this weekend. I don't have big plans, as I said. I'm actually going to be cat-sitting. At one point now, I'm going to be spending July 4th with the folks and just eating hot dogs and hamburgers and doing some swimming. So, very basic, nothing killer. But, again, it'll be fun all the same. And going to be watching some wrestling shows, obviously. So, for those of you getting up early tomorrow morning to watch Beast in the East, I hope you all enjoy it. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. It looks like it's going to be pretty killer. And again, I encourage people to check out Dominion as well. So, a lot of good shows out there. So, with all of that said, enjoy your July 4th weekend, and I will see you all next week.